news this week, Intel Arc Battlemage rumors. Sam Bankman-Fried gets sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Guess you could say he wasn't freed. Also, Microsoft Gaming and Xbox CEO Phil Spencer really wishes someone would do something about that whole Xbox experience thing. And there's new AM4 CPUs. Again, this time, we'll stop saying it might be the last time they're making AM4 CPUs because it's 3 times now. So we'll just assume they're going to go forever. Before that, this video is brought to you by Squarespace, and visiting squarespace.com/gamersnexus will give you 10% off your first purchase with them. We've built a number of our own websites with Squarespace, where we list catastrophic PC hardware failures to inform subscribers of those failures. We also built our store website with Squarespace using its built-in e-commerce tools, and of course, we built a website for our CEO Snowflake because she demanded our audience know who really runs the show. Get to the core of your idea and spend less time on web design by signing up at squarespace.com/gamersnexus or click the link below. Up first, Sam Bankman-Fried, the crypto billionaire who definitely hasn't hidden a seed phrase in a hardware wallet somewhere, has been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for his time running FTX. Previously, Bankman-Fried was convicted of stealing around $8 billion. This was during the whole FTX exchange collapse, and received a maximum sentencing guideline of 110 years. Prosecutors ended up seeking 50 years, and SBF's defense sought a maximum of 6.5 years. That'd be less than 1 year per count of criminal convictions, of which he had 7. Sam Bankman-Fried appeared for sentencing this week in federal court in Manhattan, stating that he was, quote, selfish and, quote, threw it all away, which is probably one of the most selfish ways to look at his fraudulent past. The judge stated that the defense was, quote, misleading, logically flawed, and speculative. Was he talking about like crypto or just? No, he was talking about the defense. Before handing down the 25-year sentence. Now, in the US, there's always cynicism about white-collar crime getting let off easy or out early. And our understanding is that federal prison gives up to 54 days per year of credit time served for good behavior. I don't know. This is a Wikipedia 1-paragraph thing, so we're not experts in that. Assuming that's how it works, then he'd be able to get out maybe in 21 or 22 years or something, assuming that there's not an appeal that gets him out sooner, which has happened in the past. So Bankman-Fried here caused many lifetimes worth of financial harm, and considering that, this sentence might be light. Consider that Bernie Madoff, who famously ran a Ponzi scheme, stole anywhere from $20 to $65 billion, depending on how you count it. He received a 150-year sentence and died in prison. Enron's Jeff Skilling received a 24-year sentence for his golden parachute in the early 2000s, but was released after 12 years from a successful appeal. He had been indicted on 35 counts of conspiracy, insider trading, and securities fraud. More recently, Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos received a weak 11-year sentence after working her way up to a $4.5 billion net worth, depending on who you trust for that evaluation, after deceiving people of an advanced new medical technology that would have revolutionized treatment. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said that there are, quote, serious consequences for defrauding customers and investors. Anyone who believes they can hide their financial crimes behind wealth and power or behind a shiny new thing they claim no one else is smart enough to understand should think twice. He then said, but if you're a bank, it's fine, before asking Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, and Bank of America if they'd like a side of money with their money. So maybe that's the end of the FTX saga for now, other than the wake of financial destruction and ruin that they sort of left. But SBF will be out of the news for a little while, it looks like. Intel hasn't said much about its upcoming Battlemage GPUs recently, but a Twitter user by the name of @MIKTDT saw 2 new Intel GPU SKUs within the Software standard database, and this potentially could be Battlemage GPUs. Looking into the benchmarking database, both SKUs are currently equipped with about 12 gigabytes of VRAM, they have 8 megabytes of L2 cache, and they have clocks listed at 1.8 gigahertz. One SKU, however, has 192 CUs listed according to Software and posted a 7,231.2 megapixel per second score. The other SKU, meanwhile, is 160 CUs and posts a lower 6,030 megapixel per second score. Now, Intel doesn't use the terminology CU, or compute unit. That's an AMD terminology. Intel instead might use EUs, or execution units, in this capacity. It also uses things like Xe cores, render slices, vector engines. They all have their own names for this stuff. The CU equivalent is likely meant to be EUs. So for reference, the A770 has 512 EUs, and the A750 has 448. So if these are indeed Battlemage GPUs, there's no telling how far in development these graphics cards were at the time the tests were conducted, and driver optimization, or lack thereof, is another aspect to take into account, which can have a big impact on performance. Previously, in an interview with PC World, published on January 10th, Intel engineer Tom Peterson said of Battlemage, quote, "It's coming, I'm excited about it. I'd say about 30% of our engineers are working on Battlemage, mostly on the software side because our hardware group is on the next thing. So think of it as a Battlemage has already had its first silicon in the labs, which is very exciting, and there's more good news coming, but I can't talk about right now." More recently, when Tom Peterson visited, we asked him if there's literally anything he can share about Battlemage, and he said, quote, "Battlemage is coming." So the statement's the same since January, but at least they're consistent. Up next, Phil Spencer has used many PC gaming handhelds, and in an interview with Polygon at GDC, the Microsoft gaming CEO said, quote, "I want my Lenovo Legion Go to feel like an Xbox. I brought the Legion Go with me to GDC. I'm on the airplane, and I have this list of everything that makes it not feel like an Xbox." What? Well, hopefully that list starts with the fact that it can turn on an airplane. That's probably number one, doesn't feel like an Xbox. Doesn't require a TV or external screen, might be another one. Doesn't require more power than the in-seat power socket can provide, as maybe another on the list. Small, doesn't require a full carry-on bag to bring. It's a small list of things. We wonder where else in life, though, he applies this logic. Like, when he's eating chicken nuggets, does he say, I want my chicken nuggets to feel like an Xbox? And there's just this list of things that make them not feel like an Xbox. Spencer continued, quote, "Forget about the brand, more like, are all of my games there? Do all my games show up with the save files that I want? I'll tell you one game that doesn't right now, it's driving me crazy, is Fallout 76. It doesn't have cross-save. If only there were a person in a position to try and do something about that. Someone in a position where they could unify these experiences. Someone with a title like Microsoft Gaming CEO, which also owns Bethesda, which made Fallout 76. We just need that person to try and unify the experience. But they don't exist." He added, quote, "I want to be able to boot into the Xbox app in a full screen but compact mode, and all of my social experiences there. Like, I want it to feel like the dash of my Xbox when I turn on the television, except I want it on those devices," referring to the Go. Fortunately, what Phil Spencer described exists. It's called Steam Big Picture Mode, and he just wants it to have a big green X instead of the Steam logo. So none of this would be revolutionary. The conversation could basically be boiled down into, I want an Xbox Steam Deck, which is bolstered by these additional comments, maybe pointing towards a Microsoft actual gaming handheld. Whether or not it qualifies as Xbox, a different conversation. Quote, "The Xbox hardware team is considering different hardware form factors and things that they could go do. That will allow people to play at times when they couldn't go play before. I like the fact that Valve, Lenovo, and Asus went out and innovated on a new form factor. And I will say that when I'm playing on those devices, it almost feels more like a console than a PC, 9 times out of 10. The things that usually frustrate me are more Windows-based than device-based, which is an area I feel some ownership of. Like, I want to be able to log in with a controller. Got a list of things we should go do. He's right, the Windows issues are definitely a Microsoft problem. The Steam Deck doesn't have Windows, though. According to publication Xbox Era, the next Xbox is not being developed by the same exact team, including Jason Ronald, who led the development behind the Xbox Series X and S hardware, but instead it might be led by the Microsoft Surface team, fueling rumors of an impending Xbox handheld device. While Spencer stopped short of actually announcing a handheld, he did tell Polygon that, quote, look at the real inflection points in our industry, like the Wii. It was a hardware innovation that was linked with great software innovation. Handhelds have been around a long time, of course. The Game Boy was probably the first famous example of it in recent times anyway, and then the Switch in actually recent times, kind of defining this current generation of handhelds. PlayStation has also been involved, Sony with the PSP, the PS Vita, more recently the PlayStation Portal, to the extent you can count it. Microsoft has not waded into those waters yet, though. Now, the Xbox moniker might be the reason they haven't waded into those waters, because it wouldn't make sense in this form factor. It's not really a box, nor is it an X. So we would propose something different, like the X rectangular controller with a screen attached. The name needs some work, but moving on, at an AI PC summit in China, AMD revealed that it'll be releasing new AM4 CPUs with its 5000 XT series. Videocards.com reports that the Zen 3 CPUs will be based on the Vermeer silicon, and that AMD has extended AM4 support well into 2025. Unfortunately, details on the 5000 XT are slim, with no specific SKUs announced. The last time we saw the XT naming in AMD's CPU lineup was with the company's 3000 XTs, which came out in 2020 and offered like a 100 megahertz boost over the non-XT counterparts. Fun fact, that was also, to my memory, the first time we debuted and coined the phrase waste of sand. It was with the 3000 XT series CPUs. I specifically remember feeling like I had wasted massive amounts of time working on those when the review basically could have been, it's the same. 5000 XT hopefully will be a little different from that, but we'll see. New Ryzen 8000 processors were also spotted at this event. That's maybe the more interesting news here. The board vendors are prepping for it. That means it's imminent at this point. We wouldn't be surprised if this is something like maybe a Computex launch. That would be June this year, and we'll be at that event. Namely, the R7 8700F and R5 8400F were the ones shown at the recent AI summit in China, and so it's getting near at this point. Up next, some AI market share stuff. So recently, when we covered the NVIDIA keynote from the last couple weeks, we talked about how companies like Amazon, Google, and anyone else relying on NVIDIA's GPUs for their AI ventures, whether they're actually innovative or they're just kind of chasing the tulips. The one concern we brought up was for these mega corporations was that NVIDIA is sort of at the end of the road, no matter which one you take. And as Jimmy, who has been writing some of these news episodes recently said, it's like no matter which path you take, all roads lead to NVIDIA for AI right now. So that has been a sort of concern in this burgeoning market. Another concern, though, is that all of the AI server solutions basically point to one place as well, which is Taiwan. And then, of course, Taiwan Semiconductor at sort of the heart of everything. That hasn't really changed other than now it's got AI attached to it. So at a recent briefing, the Taiwanese government informed leaders from the ICT that it produced the vast majority of AI servers across the globe. Digitimes reported on the event, and Digitimes wrote this, quote, Taiwanese manufacturers dominate over 90% of the global AI server shipments, and all American brand vendors are expected to source their AI servers from Taiwanese partners, end quote. Similar to how the AI world relies again on NVIDIA, if AI is the future, then nearly all roads also lead to Taiwan Semiconductor, and it looks like a lot of the server manufacturers there. The interesting part of this is that in that Digitimes report, they talk about cost a little bit. So Digitimes indicated that AI chip substrates are selling for apparently 10 times their general server counterparts, which maybe gives us some perspective on how crazed the world is over 2 letters right now, because that's crazy. But it's also kind of what we knew with the H100 from NVIDIA and the many tens of thousands of dollars it costs to get one and the years of wait time. Up next, AOC has launched a new monitor, and this one is called the Aegon Pro AG456 UCZ. D. There's another letter. On paper, the AOC Aegon Pro AG456 UCZD has a 21:9 aspect ratio with generally impressive specs. It's 44.5 inches, 3440 by 1440, coupled with an OLED screen and a 240 hertz refresh. It also supports FreeSync, and AOC boasts a 0.03 millisecond gray-to-gray response. To compensate for the large screen, it also features a relatively tight 800 radius curve. The monitor also has USB-C connectivity, and none of this comes cheap because the Agon Pro AG456UCZD will set you back $1,400. If you're wondering about the price, it's because the amount of letters and numbers they have in the product name drives the ink price up a lot for the cardboard box they printed on. Up next, Orange Pi Neo is potentially a new competitor in the handheld gaming space, and it's launched in China. The Orange Pi Neo is interesting because, like the Steam Deck before it, it'll use Linux, but it'll run on Manjaro's Gaming Edition OS. I look forward to you telling me how I mispronounced that in the comments. The Orange Pi Neo launched with 2 processor options. The base unit is equipped with AMD's 7840U processor, and the higher end one is equipped with the 8840U, which is basically the same except for the AI marketing attached to it. The main hook that they have for this is that it starts at $500, so it's competitively priced. It comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM along with 512 gigabytes of storage. There are options to scale RAM and storage up to 32 gigabytes and 2 terabytes, respectively. In terms of display, the Orange Pi Neo comes with a 7-inch 1920 by 1200 resolution 120Hz screen. For battery, it employs a 50 watt-hour solution. The company's advertising the device as more than just a portable gaming device, saying, quote, it's also a slim desktop personal computer. In terms of design, you can get it either in black or white. It comes equipped with RGB lighting also. The company also pushes the fact that there are no exposed screws on the body, they say. Now, to us, that is a massive downside if it affects the repairability and the ease with which the device can be opened. And almost certainly it does, because not many other solutions. You can use like a press fit, kind of like the Stadia controller. I'd forgotten the name. Or the other solution would be the plastic snaps you find on laptops. So hopefully they haven't built it in a way where it just falls apart if you open it. More concerning is that we see no Orange Pis here. So the entire company's name is a lie. After 4 years of part-time stealth development, software engineer Dylan Berry has launched his FuryGPU graphics card, not to be confused with the AMD Fury, and the card is based on a Xilinx FPGA design. This is actually super cool. So the card's website reads, FuryGPU is a real hardware GPU implemented on a Xilinx Zynq UltraScale plus FPGA, built on a custom PCB, and connected to the host computer using PCIe. Supporting hardware features equivalent to a high-end graphics card of the mid-90s and a full modern Windows software driver stack, it can render real games of that era, end quote. Visually, the card looks like it's from that era as well, in a complementary way. It has an exposed green PCB, definitely reminiscent of that time, and it does, however, come with one big change, which is modern amenities like DisplayPort and HDMI. In terms of real-world performance, Berry asserts that the FuryGPU is able to run Quake at 60 FPS at 720p, which is actually incredibly impressive coming from a, basically, as we understand it, single-person team with open source plans as well. According to Tom's Hardware, Berry was inspired to bring FuryGPU to fruition when he saw Ben Eater build his own programmable 8-bit computer. Also, according to Tom's, Berry got a start by obtaining and playing around with an FPGA packaging RDZ7 development board. The publication elaborated, quote, Berry taught himself the system Verilog hardware description and hardware verification language and the KiCad EDA electronics CAD software suite. Tom's quoted him as saying that a Herculean effort was needed to design the schematic for the FuryGPU with 4-lane PCIe that it has today, even with FPGA circuitry built into the SOM, end quote. Berry described the most painful aspect, unsurprisingly maybe, as building Windows drivers for this, though he does have the advantage of working on the software side of graphics and graphics rendering within the gaming industry to make it hopefully a little bit easier. He initially set out to leverage the FuryGPU to render, quote, a simple spinning cube demo, but cranked up the ambitions and eventually moved the target to run Quake on the card. After working on the Windows drivers and writing a custom graphics API along with writing Windows kernel drivers for audio and video, he claims to have gotten the graphics card again to run Quake at 60 FPS. Berry plans on open sourcing the GPU, saying, quote, I'm intending on open sourcing the entire stack, PCB schematic, layout, all the HDL, Windows WDDM drivers, API runtime drivers, and Quake ported to use the API at some point. But there are a number of legal issues, he wrote on a Hacker News post. Elaborating on the positioning, though, he also wrote this, quote, let's be clear, this is a toy. This is not going to change the GPU landscape or compete with any of the commercial players. It is, however, super cool, and I would like to buy one just to mess around with if they go up for sale. And probably a lot of people feel the same way just because it's neat to see. GPUs are not easy to make, obviously. So as we've talked about in the past, making one that's capable of even decades-old processing or performance expectations is impressive, especially in this capacity. So great work on the FuryGPU here, and hopefully we can do something with it in the future. But it looks like the RTX 5090 is safe for now, until the FuryGPU 2. And up last, a quick update on Intel's Presentmon 2 closed beta that we've been testing out because there's some cool stuff to share on it, and actually some good progress and bug fixes too. We've kind of discovered or integrated at least with Dragon's Dogma 2, not Dragmas Doggin. That name has stuck after I misspoke it in the video that one time and we left it in. But Presentmon 2 is the utility we used for that, and the cool thing that we've been working on is simulation time error is now functioning, and there's a column for it in the spreadsheet. So I'll talk about that for a second here, where basically this is the key element that when Tom Peterson, engineer at Intel, joined, he talked about how there's frame times, which everyone has kind of accepted now. And then there's one more step beyond that that's been missing, which is simulation time errors. And simulation time error is really the key difference in terms of what just feels bad. When you're playing a game, but the frame times look otherwise acceptable. And it's that difference that your brain perceives in when the animation is happening versus the actual present time of the frame. And so we kind of talked about that in an interview and engineering discussion with Tom previously. Presentmon 2 is an updated version of Presentmon, of course, the latter having been around for many years now. But the second iteration is currently in a, I think, closed beta, which we have. I think it's going to open beta soon. It's got an interface. And anyway, part of what we've been working on the past week, sort of silently behind the scenes, is trying to get the simulation time error stuff to present an actual chart of some kind that we can put on the screen in the videos and talk about, okay, we feel this animation error, where there's a disconnect between what's being drawn and when, and what you think should be happening based on the trajectory of the object your brain is tracking. And we can see it, we can perceive it. What we wanted was a chart. And so anyway, I used Dragon's Dogma 2 to generate some CSVs and captures, sent it to Tom Peterson, and said, this game feels terrible to play under these conditions, but the frame times look okay. I think it's simulation time error. Can you take a look? So he looked through it, and he found a couple of areas where it is actually just really off for the simulation time versus the frame time. And to the extent that, for example, one of the frame times was something like 48 milliseconds, and the simulation time error was 42. Another one, it was an 8 millisecond frame time. Simulation time error was far in excess of that. The frame drew too fast, whereas if it had been held a little longer, the game actually might have looked better despite having a technically lower FPS for that instant in time. So that's the really cool stuff we've been working on. We're probably going to do a full video on it. Not sure if it'll focus just on Dragon's Dogma, that is the right name, or if we'll add other games to it. But wanted to update you on all that. Other things from that video. So the Presentmon 2 closed beta, we've got the simulation time error stuff we're working on. We are also working on some latency testing for Dragon's Dogma 2 because there was a bug in the Presentmon 2 interface where they have this click-to-photon metric that they've introduced, and Tom talked about it in the interviews. This is the part that Intel's been working on building in. And that click-to-photon takes, I think, an ETW event or something like a Windows USB event trigger and tracks until some point in time that is relatively close to photon. But in reality, you can never truly be click-to-photon without a physical hardware capture. So they're trying to get as close as they can to it, similar to what NVIDIA's been doing with FrameView, where they insert these markers to track latency. So the closed beta of Presentmon 2, and this is why it's in a beta right now, had an error where for the click-to-photon binning, if you were doing a histogram, it was also averaging the zeros. And zeros happen in click-to-photon latency if you are not providing input. So they fixed that as well. It's cool. It's cool to see like the rapid development of this utility. And so what our next steps are as basically beta testers for this thing that we think everybody should be using, because it's open source and it does a lot of really advanced tracking of the performance in gaming. What we're going to do for our next beta testing is some LDAT or NVIDIA LDAT latency testing, probably using Dragon's Dogma because it's such a good test case right now because it is so absolutely atrociously optimized and built. And we're also hopefully going to use Intel's LMT, which is their future to be open sourced latency tracking. And then finally, we're going to do some software measurements, probably with FrameView and with Presentmon 2. And then we'll have a whole bunch of cool latency numbers where we can start to try and identify the usefulness of software for you all and what you might expect as a reasonable offset if you wanted to test latency of performance in a game without needing to source a physical hardware tool or a high-speed camera or something to do it. So it's going to be really fun. That's what we're working on. We have one more massive project we're clearing right now, which is an Intel Fab Tour, actually. Once that's cleared, we'll be publishing all this cool latency and simulation time, like new, or in the case of latency, not new, but just newly excited about metrics in the next week. Okay, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. As always, subscribe for more. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to grab something and help us out directly, or patreon.com/gamersnexus to throw us a few bucks for our hardware reporting. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.